So there is a insurrection out there. It's an insurrection of parents, like you just said. Right. It's an insurrection. It's a rebellion of parents that have had it with wokeism.
My name is Jared Julia, and welcome to The Cave, your source to find out how to take woke out of your child's educational experience. My guest today is best-selling author A.J. Rice of The Woking Dead and more recently, the White Privilege album. He has quite the resume, which includes being a producer for Laura Ingram's radio show and later Monica Crowley's. And if that wasn't enough, he owns a large PR firm in Washington, D.C., and he joins us now. Well, A.J. Rice, thank you so much for joining us. I've read through your book, White Privilege album. As you can see, I've marked it up quite a bit while I was reading through it. If you could just tell our audience, introduce yourself and just tell us why you wanted to write this book.
Well, Double G, great to be here, brother. Big shout out to the very fine people. The subtitle of the book, Bringing Racial Harmony to Very Fine People on Both Sides. So obviously, I'm having a little fun there, trolling the left. Right. Troll Master Flash reporting for duty. I will tell you, we didn't get a chance to talk for my first book, which was called The Woking Dead. And this book, The White Privilege album, is a sequel to that. And, while I was doing the media tour for that, it dawned on me that this is such a target-rich environment, wokeism. And we can get into what wokeism is here in a second, because it's not just a neat and tidy definition. It's not. Right. And it's never going to be, because it's sort of a potpourri of all the worst parts of cultural Marxism thrown into, one porta-john for the left to use against us. So race being used, weaponized race, on behalf of the humanities departments, on behalf of the mainstream media, Hollywood, some big tech, the Democrat Party. Woke, the purest form of woke, is coming from the race hustlers. So although wokeism is sort of like Baskin and Robbins with 30, 35 flavors, 31 flavors, right? Right. There are some primary flavors. And, the Woking Dead was this massive compendium of craziness. It was like 100 pages longer than this book. And I broke it down tried to sort of, break it down into how it's affecting sports and how it's affecting this and that, entertainment, religion. So what I found is that there are primary colors of wokeism. And when it comes to dividing us along racial lines and trying to get different types of Americans at each other's throats so the Democrat Party can have customers, because that's what this is about. This is about the Democrat Party keeping their customers. And their customers have to be pissed off, they have to be full of grievance, and they have to be blaming white privilege, or they have to be blaming the patriarchy or toxic masculinity or whatever the hell it is. That's how they stay in business. That's how they keep people on this intellectual plantation. So the race stuff, a lot of what went on after George Floyd, most of that was not captured in the first book, because the first book came out in 2022. Right. And a lot of it was written between 18 and 22. So there's a lot of COVID, a lot of, Trump stuff, some first year of Biden stuff in there. But I wanted to explore this more because although I'm having fun with bringing racial harmony to very fine people on both sides, the very fine people hoax, and that's what it is, right, is the foundational lie for the Trump is a racist narrative. Yep. Right? Now, there's other foundational lies that have been used by Barack Obama, by Black Lives Matter, Um, you know, I don't want to bore the audience
Yeah,
with a
yeah,
history lesson,
no, but it just seems
but
like across the board, woke is about dividing people. It's about people of
sure
different
it is.
colors
It's
opposing.
about identity politics. So
Right.
if you recall, and I'm a bit of a storyteller, so but bear with me here. If you recall, Barack Obama getting elected, we were supposed to be in this post-racial America, right?
Right.
So that lasted 5 minutes, right? You had the beer summit where the Cambridge police acted stupidly. You had Trayvon Martin, where if I had a son, he would look like Trayvon, Barack said, right? So Black Lives Matter comes out of that. And they start shooting cops in Dallas and burning down Ferguson and burning down Baltimore. So he's the Mr. Personality, Mr. Post-racial America, Hussein in the membrane.
Yeah.
He's the midwife. He's the midwife that births Black Lives Matter.
Right.
And then once the OG from the Golden Escalator shows up, all bets are off because they are able. The mask comes off. It comes off of the Me Too movement, primary color. It comes off of Antifa, primary color number 2. Comes off of Black Lives Matter, primary color number 3. Comes off of the trans mafia,
Right.
primary color number 4. And they're all the Woking Dead. They're all, zombies. Don't get me wrong. But understand this. The patron saint of fentanyl, George Floyd, he dies, and you have a domino effect burning America down. The kind that Mr. and Mrs. Tim Waltz love. They love it.
Right.
They love
Now,
it.
but isn't it interesting that Waltz and other white liberals are the most offended by the racism? But we're
Oh, without a
seeing a
doubt.
change in the black community that
Without a doubt.
you're going to have more black people voting for Trump if the polling is to be believed than other Republicans in the last few election
That's right.
cycles. How do
That's right. And
we account for
I'm
that?
gonna get it. Yeah, I'm
Sure.
gonna get into that. I'm gonna get into that.
Sure.
That's absolutely true. So they're doing this to Trump because Trump is more appealing to. He has made the Republican Party more working class, more blue collar, and more
Right.
multi-ethnic. More multi-ethnic. Look, I am in Swamp Central here, okay, below the streets in Washington, D.C. I'm the subterranean homesick alien down here with, Splinter and the 4 turtles. I'm down here, okay?
Right.
And I can tell you what's going on up on the surface is a uniparty aligned to try to stop Donald Trump because they know, for various reasons, Kamala Harris is underwater with Muslims in Michigan. Yep. She's underwater with Jewish voters in Pennsylvania. She's underwater with Latin Americans in Nevada and Arizona. And blacks are fleeing her.
Yep.
Like no one since Eisenhower for various reasons. This is why Barack Obama got deployed to Pittsburgh to talk to the brothers.
Yeah.
Right? So, he's got a white mom from Kansas. In fact, my new book does a tribute. There's a tribute piece to Barack Obama's white grandfather in the book. I want to spoil,
Right.
I tried to do it like Paul Harvey would do it. I don't want to spoil anything.
The rest of the story, yeah.
Yeah. Right. You'll get the rest of the story. So look, the left is scared. They already have filtered everything through, identity politics, and they have, this ice cube tray where, this is for white people, and this is Kamala's the first Indian, and the first Jamaican, and the first Canadian, and the first this, and the first that, and the first desk jockey, and everything else that she is, right? She might be president. She's never given birth. She might be president. So, I think most women say what you want about Hillary Clinton. She gave birth.
Yeah.
And that's definitely her child. That child. I mean, you can see Bill. You can see.
Yeah, you can see the resemblance.
Yeah, you can see Bill. Oh no, you can see Bill's dog face. Anyway, look, my point. My point is that they're going to do this, and they're panicking. So they had to, tar and feather Trump with as much of this race stuff as possible, because they know Trump has been for 40 years a fixture in hip hop culture, a fixture in urban culture. He's been the playboy of the Western world. And he's appeared in raps. He's appeared in rap songs and everything else, and I write about that in the book. But here's the condescending part. Here's the condescending part of the left. And I talk about this in the book a little bit. So Barack Obama was on some goofy podcast that nobody listens to, and he was trying to explain, and he's out there still trying to explain it, why the brothers, and just so the audience knows, I grew up in Philadelphia on the playground, okay? Mm-hmm. So I'm more than comfortable talking about everything in this book. In fact, I would love to be challenged by some left-wing African Americans about what's in this book. And we can have a 3-point competition, or we can have an intellectual dialogue. I'll beat you in both. I will beat you in both.
Right.
Okay? I'm the black Steph Curry. So here's the thing. Barack Obama's on this podcast and he's saying this, and he's just dripping with disdain. He says, black people, males, are gravitating towards Trump. This is so condescending. This is how he thinks. This is how half white Barack from Kansas thinks. He says they look at Trump and they see the bling. They see the bling. They see the gold-plated. They see the gold-plated golf courses, and they see this, and they see the women and the flat and the airplane and this and that. So they gravitate towards him because of that. Now, here's the thing, and I know Barack had Jay-Z and Beyonce in the Situation Room a lot when he was in the White House. He did. But this is so condescending because he's basically saying, to quote Daniel Patrick Moynihan's soft bigotry of low expectations,
right?
That these people cannot think for themselves. They're all being fooled by the fact that Trump's got a private jet and he's got his gold-plated golf courses, and he seems like a hip hop boss, right?
Right.
And that black people, that's what they're concerned about. They're not concerned, apparently, Double G, that their communities are overrun with migrants. They got $6 eggs. They got the Green New Deal they're trying to stuff on these people. The public schools are shot. So he doesn't see that. Barack doesn't see that.
Well, and that's a great point, because in Psych 101 in college, we were all taught about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where the lowest needs were breathing, having access to clean water, and then the highest one up, but the least important, is self-actualization. So there's and I feel as though that's true with politics as well, that before you can self-actualize, you've got to take care of the basics. And right now, most people can't afford groceries, and people can't afford to do things that they could under Trump, and that this matters more than these other higher level kind of woke things that people are talking about.
Sure. Well, different intellectuals that, went to fancier schools than I do have declared wokeism over, and that we reached peak woke in 2022. But I'm going to tell you right now, it is never going to be over. The word use, the conservatives like myself, this is my second book on this stuff, Vivek, Ben Shapiro, Charlie Kirk, some of my clients, and many others, Don Jr., we've made woke kind of like getting an STD. So, but understand that what is wokeism, right? You get out your NutriBullet, or you get out your Blendtec, get your blender out, and you put a little bit of social justice warrior identity politics in there, a little bit of cancel culture, a little bit of political correctness, right? Filter it through, different types of sort of grievance groups, and you've got wokeism. But essentially what it is cultural Marxism.
Yeah.
And what's that? Well, about 100 years ago, the economic Marxists, had dawned on them that they would have to take off that jersey and put on the cultural Marxist jersey, because they weren't going to get your standard issue Marxist revolution here.
Right.
like overthrowing the Romanovs in Russia, or Che and Fidel coming down like liberators from the mountain, or what Ho Chi Minh did, and what Mao did, and the Kim family in North Korea. You're
Yeah,
not going
they
to
did
get
it in very
that.
unstable countries that
Well,
had a
then,
ruling
well,
class that was reviled. And
right. So
yeah,
the
and
only
how do you do that in a
exactly.
democracy where most people are happy? Yeah,
That's right. And why are we happy? Because we have a vibrant middle class. We
yeah,
have a vibrant middle class. Those places were either royal families, autocratic regimes,
right.
colonial powers, the Batistas in Cuba. So you have a peasant revolt. You have a
Yeah,
peasant revolt.
right.
So the serfs rise up, and once a ruling elite gets into power, then you just become serfs again, and they ration you to death. And
Right.
but here, and you have to understand that they're looking. This is Woodrow Wilson. This is Margaret Sanger. This is this time period. So this is around World War One,
Right.
and they're saying to themselves, well, we're not going to be able to hang the capitalists with the rope they manufactured,
Right.
right? Upton Sinclair could write The Jungle 50 times, right? It's not going to happen. And
Right.
the union movements probably are a good thing. Um, because some of these coal miners, some of these union movements, not the public sector ones, but the ones that were dealing with
Right.
coal and steel, and they were really being mistreated by robber barons and by other people. And Teddy Roosevelt and Taft got involved with that. Polish immigrants that were like mining anthracite, these
Right.
different things. Um, Probably a good thing. Samuel Gompers was involved. So I'm not talking about that. And there's purity test conservatives out there that don't like unions. I'm not a purity test guy.
Right.
You see some of these unions now, it's taken 100 years. They're moving away from the Democrat Party
Yeah.
because Trump has made the Republican Party more than a bunch of dorks at the Chamber of Commerce, because that's what the Republican Party was.
Right.
Chamber of Commerce beta males, right?
Yeah.
That all prepped. They all went to the fancy schools, right? So it's funny. You see some of them moving towards Kamala. There's a realignment happening. I think it's a good thing. So but
Yeah,
back to what I was saying.
and I was going to say that we do see more and more people on the left aligning, not exactly with this campaign, but more so. I mean, Bill Maher is very far left, and yet really
Yeah,
is anti-woke. RFK is aligned with Trump. Elon Musk, I guess everyone's forgotten that he invented Tesla for
sure.
left-wing environmentalists. I mean, it's truly remarkable how many people have moved over, and what they got in exchange was, Dick Cheney, essentially.
Sure, sure. I'm going to touch on that here in a second. Because some of those people you named are clients of Publius PR. Um, and the audience should know, I write books for fun because I like pain. I'm a masochist, but my day job is running Publius PR in Washington, D.C., which we like to think of ourselves as the center of the MAGA cinematic universe. So we are the only PR firm that represents both Trump and RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard and Vivek and,
Right.
Google me, Barbara. You'll see them all. I mean, they're all there. And, I'm sure you'll go over that at some point. But here's the thing. So economic Marxism becomes cultural Marxism. They infect like tapeworms, like termites, the public sector unions, Broadway, the silent picture industry, early radio, the Democrat Party, and the newspaper business. And then you fast forward 100 years to right now, they do the long march through
Right.
the institutions, right? So they're burrowed in. They're burrowed in, and they've gotten into other places that they normally didn't get into. They're in the Pentagon, they're in the tech companies,
Right.
they're bringing Karl Marx into some of these churches,
Yeah.
and they're baptizing them. They're baptizing them right in the church, right? And I'm an Irish Catholic guy. Even the Catholic Church has been hypnotized by some of this. Like, do we really need an encyclical on global warming? I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. Right. So that brings us to today and what's going on in politics today. And we talked about this realignment happening. And you have to say to yourself, what are the sort of woke Waterloo moments? There are cultural ones, like when Kid Rock decided that he wasn't going to drink Bud Light anymore, and he opened fire. He opened fire on a case of Bud Light with an AR-15, put it on Instagram. Anheuser-Busch was on a private jet to get to his house by the time that video was done playing, because some tone-deaf wacko over at Anheuser-Busch decided to put a tranny in a bathtub with 2 Bud Light Pounders, not remembering who their freaking audience is.
Right. But and it seems like they get pressure from above by BlackRock and all of these other. I mean, that seems to be where the push comes from. You would infect those pressure points, and the rest follows. Yeah.
Some of it comes from the big investment firms for sure. But understand this: the middle management of a lot of these places are like a wacko woke intifada. I mean, I don't care whether it's the middle management at Spotify that want you get Rogan booted, Netflix, they're trying to get Chappelle booted. But Budweiser, this kook that was in charge of Budweiser, I mean, she stood by it till the end and then she was fired.
Right.
So there's a demo there. You know, some of it's the demo that JD Vance has ID'd, which is the unmarried, miserable cat ladies, which are listening to Taylor Swift. Got Taylor on in the background, right? They're not exactly listening to Metallica or Johnny Cash. So understand that there is a problem there in the middle management, and you're going to have these explosions, these little intifadas, woke intifadas that come up, right? The other woke Waterloo, which I love to point out, is when, remarkably, Ricky Gervais was able to stand there at the Golden Globes. And just, now, can you imagine if he had the P. Diddy data at that point? And he's just going around the room.
Right.
Epstein, Weinstein, Epstein, Weinstein, Epstein, Weinstein, Epstein, Weinstein, Epstein, Weinstein. He's going around the room and he's just nuking them. He's just nuking them. So these are woke Waterloo moments that force the enemy to retreat into the HR departments.
Right.
Where they go in there. They can't outwardly sticking the tranny in the bathtub. I mean, that's huge. That's huge. So they go in and they do their DEI ESG stuff, right?
Yeah.
I call that trickle down wokeism. That's how they're hiding. They're hiding through the HR department. They're hiding through sensitivity training sessions. And then you've got trickle down wokeism from diversity, equity, inclusion, environmental, social governance.
Right.
ESG and DEI. So you have that happening. A minute ago, you mentioned some politicians.
Yeah.
So other woke Waterloo moments. If Trump wins, and I believe he will have won because, unlike Linguini Spine Romney, unlike the heroes that were captured and the heroes that weren't captured, John McCain, unlike the Bush family, Trump was able to basically flip 3 people in particular. There's others that will be consequential for all time. When the history is written of this era, the OG from the Golden Escalator era, understand that Elon Musk, who was basically a Democrat, forget the Tesla thing. I mean, he's an inventor. So it's kind of like, well, what party did Ben Franklin belong to? I mean, he didn't belong to the Federalists. He didn't belong to the Federalists or the Democratic Republicans. He was just this figure. Right. Like Mark Twain was just this Albert Einstein. We have these figures in history. And, you know, Walter Isaacson's, I think, written a book about every person I just mentioned there. Because they're bigger than the zeitgeist of the times. Elon being red pill and understanding the true threat and going all in. I mean, he's all in. mean, Bill Maher, I think, agrees with us on wokeism and some of this kookiness, but
but not
he's not
other
gonna
things.
he's not gonna be able to bring himself to
No,
endorse Trump. He's not
no,
gonna. He's not. He's not. He's not. So yeah, he knows that he'll be up. He'll be in. He'll be next to me and Tucker and everyone else in front of the firing squad if they get us. He'll be in the gulag. He'll be in the gulag with
right.
Hannity.
Yeah,
So, if they come for him. But he's an LA guy and he's just not gonna he can't endorse Trump. He's just not gonna be able to.
right.
So you got Elon, RFK Jr., the oldest heir to the Kennedy family,
Right,
the oldest child alive from the core children.
right.
Joe Jr., who died in the fighting the Nazis,
Right.
in the dogfight, and then Jack and Bobby and the girls and Teddy and so on. He's
Yeah.
the oldest male. He's the oldest male child from the primary Kennedy.
Now it is interesting because we think of the Kennedy family as monolithic because Ted Kennedy was very, very far left, but we forget that that RFK's uncle John F. Kennedy was passionately anti-communist, and
so was Bobby.
And one of McCarthy's top researchers was Bobby Kennedy. Bobby Kennedy wanted to go to Senator McCarthy's funeral, but Joe Sr. said he didn't like the optics of that, and so forbid him to go to the funeral. But he was very much aligned with McCarthyism. I think that it's interesting that these old school anti-Marxist liberals are also the anti-woke liberals of
100%
today. Yeah, go ahead.
100%. So so Jack and Bobby were staunch anti-communists. They were NRA members. The biggest tax cut in history until Reagan came along and did his in '83 was JFK's tax cut. I mean,
exactly.
Top marginal rate was in the 70s, under Truman. So yeah, I mean, if you bring them forward to today, they'd have a hard time finding a home in the Democrat Party. And look, that's what Ronald Reagan used to. I mean, Reagan and Trump were both Democrats too, remember?
Yep, and both union guys, especially Reagan was a union man. Yeah,
he was the head of the Screen Actors Guild. And look, Reagan used to say the Democrat Party didn't, or I didn't leave the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party left me.
Right.
So you've got Elon, you got RFK Jr., and then you've got Tulsi. So these three flips, and full disclosure,
very important. Yeah.
Tulsi Gabbard is our client. We did her book. RFK Jr., we do his books. We do media even for his super PAC. And then Donald Trump, we do media for his publishing house, Don Jr.'s books, and they own 45 books called Winning Team Publishing.
Mm-hmm.
People should go check it out. They did, Judge Jeanine and Charlie Kirk and MTG and Carrie Lake and so on. Most recently, Peter Navarro. So, and we do the media for all of them. So, those three flips, they're consequential because it just shows you, for all the conspiracy theories about there's no uniparty, there's no establishment. Meanwhile, so Trump's in the battleship with RFK, Tulsi, and Elon. Kamala has got Dick Cheney and Dick Cheney's daughter, Dick Cheney in drag, got Liz Cheney, and she stands on national television at that debate bragging about it. Mr. Weapons of Mass Destruction, Mr. Iraq War, and many other things. I mean, Cheney was I think he was chief of staff to Nixon. Anyway, point is, she's waving around this letter.
Right.
And I stand here proudly with 250 Romneys and McCains and Bushes and Cheneys. I mean, who do you want to roll with, ladies and gentlemen?
Yeah. It's a serious realignment ideologically.
Because Trump's coalition now is, it's MAGA people and populists and the deplorables, but it's also all these RFK Jr. people. It's all these Ron Paul people, right? People forget. It's a percentage of Bernie Sanders people that know the whole thing's rigged. You think all those Bernie Sanders people are
Yeah.
You think they're excited to roll with Dick Cheney? I mean,
Yeah.
come on,
Yeah.
right?
It,
So
and it's funny getting out of that
yeah,
area and getting into the audience for this podcast. It's all parents that want to get woke out of our education system.
right.
And some of them, their solution is homeschooling. And you would think that they're all right wing, but there's
No,
actually a lot of left
no
wing
way.
parents that have had it with this. Yeah.
They've had it. They're I call them hippie cowboys. Some of them tried out Montessori, and even the Montessori was kooky, right?
Yeah.
So they went homeschool, and they might be not religious at all.
Yep.
They might just be like agrarian reformers. They're just growing their own foods. They live on some kibbutz or
Yeah.
whatever the hell it is, right? So, and you have the freedom to do that, because at the end of the day, whether whether greatschools.com ranks your school a 10, like in Northern Virginia, or
Right.
whether it ranks at a 1, these are government schools.
Yeah.
They are government schools.
And they're
And
run
I
by
don't
the
know,
teachers unions. Yeah.
what does the government, what product does the government turn out that is a good product? I would like a list. Could you send me a list, ladies and gentlemen? So, maybe some bullets and some bombs from time to time. Maybe the Moab. Trump was the first one to drop one of those. So maybe the Moab, you can give me that, right? But if I take the firepower away, the F-35 away, and the super carriers, tell me the product that they turn out that's wonderful. So, so look, let's get to the core of this, which is your audience and the theme of this podcast. So there is a insurrection out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the one that Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger are looking for,
Right.
but it's an insurrection of parents, like you just said.
Right.
It's an insurrection. It's a rebellion of parents that have had it with wokeism. Most normal people don't want to be divided into identity groups.
Right.
They don't want to be told the blacks, you have to hate these people, and the whites have to hate those people, and take down this statue and that statue. I mean, we all knew they weren't going to stop with the Confederate generals. As soon as they were done with the Confederate generals, they went for the Union generals, and they went for, everyone from Patton to MacArthur to General Washington and Jackson and so on. They're coming for Columbus. They're coming for, Churchill and the Queen of England. They're coming for everybody.
Right.
Right. Because it's not about white privilege. It's not about the patriarchy. Obviously, with an apology to the Beatles, white privilege album, having a little fun. Although I did model the book cover on Pink Floyd's The Wall more than I did the Beatles. But I will tell you, the left, cultural Marxists, know that in order to capture our society,
mm-hmm.
3 things have to go. 3 things. And at sort of the most macro level, Western civilization has to go.
Right.
What is that? Well, it's Greco-Roman, Judeo-Christian civilization.
Right.
The 4 legs of the stool. Anything that created, and it's the most successful civilization in Earth's history, and not all civilizations are created equal, which is why some of them go away.
Right.
And just understand this: we're not a multicultural country. We're a multi-ethnic country.
Right.
We have one culture. We have one culture here, and it's why our civilization has thrived. It's Western culture. The cultural Marxists know that.
Right.
Which is why it has to go. It has to go away. And they're doing everything in their power to make it go away.
Because what they have is not superior. So that's why they have to tear down what is here. The rule of law that we get from the Romans, the morality that we get from the Judeo-Christian tradition.
Correct.
Correct.
But that doesn't mean we can't be a melting pot. It doesn't mean you can't go out with your friends on Cinco de Mayo and have tequila shots. You could go to yoga. You can go to have sushi. But just because we like, we can wear a kaftan and go eat sushi and have an enchilada doesn't mean we're throwing out the Magna Carta.
Right.
It doesn't mean we're throwing out the Bill of Rights just because we like sushi. Right. We're smart enough. We're not getting rid of, Guinness. Okay. God forbid.
Certainly not.
All right. But they hate that, which is why, St. Patrick and Columbus Day and
Yeah.
some of these things, which is why they're under assault, because they're
Now,
Western
right.
traditions,
Sure.
right?
Now, I have to call attention to the fact that we're filming this on Columbus Day, and a lot of parents are upset that their kids are being told that this is actually Indigenous Peoples Day.
Whoever that
And
is, right?
yeah, what is wrong with that in your estimation?
Well, it's the one day, Elizabeth Warren, Senator, Massachusetts, gets to put on her headdress and get out there and protest I guess at this point it would be the Kansas City Chiefs and the Atlanta Braves, because I think, maybe the Chicago Blackhawks, because they've already captured the Cleveland Indians and the Washington Redskins. We'll see what happens. The Redskins may flip their name back. You never know.
Mm.
As an Irish guy, I'm super offended by the Boston Celtics and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. It's
Yeah,
such a stereo.
it's almost like that old Woody Allen joke where he goes, "You'll never see a baseball team between the nail biters and the bedwetters." In other words,
That's
people
right.
name teams after things they admire, not things
Sure.
that they're trying to marginalize. That's
Sure.
one of the absurdities of woke.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right. But part of my job with my books, The Woking Dead and the White Privilege Album,
yeah,
is to use absurdity to illustrate truth. It's something Rush Limbaugh used to say all the time, that his job was to use irreverent humor to illustrate truth. And that's what you have to do. You have to hang jokes on these people because they're after your civilization. They're after Western civilization. The second thing they're after, which what the book's about, is the middle class. And we
right,
talked about economic Marxists earlier. If they're going to capture us, they need to destroy the middle class, which is why you get the unchecked migration and you get the Green New Deal. Because these things will soak the middle class, high interest rates on cars, high interest rates on APR, home loans, and so on. They need that because they need us broken. They
right,
need us all in the Kamala breadline, waiting for the government to feed us.
right,
Right? That's what they want. That's the goal.
right.
And then the third thing that has to go, absolutely has to go. And they hate this for various reasons.
Hmm.
Some of them hate this because they think we're all breeders and that every one of our children
Yeah,
are carbon footprints that can't be offset by John Kerry and Leonardo DiCaprio on their planes. They hate the nuclear family.
right.
They think it's a construct of white privilege, and it has to go. Now, this is one of those rare occurrences when they actually told us. Black Lives Matter put on their website that the nuclear family had to go, that it was a construct of colonial patriarchy, white
Yep,
supremacy, and all this other nonsense. It was right next to their love letter to Hamas.
right.
So look, if they can get rid of Western civilization, the middle class, and the nuclear family, they can reset us. They can remake us in their bleak image,
Yep,
cultural Marxism's image, and they can reset the family and reset our diet and reset our church and reset a lot of things.
right.
And although this may seem like a word salad, you have to listen to the Marxists when they speak,
Right.
because when they reset us, what can become unburdened by what has been.
Yes. And
And
people think that's a
although,
word salad, but that's actually she's
no,
talking to the true believer Marxist. And for anyone that
that's
thinks
right.
woke is not Marxism, everyone that the woke quote, the academics, Jacques Derrida, Herbert
All of
Marcuse, and
them.
especially Michel Foucault, they were
Foucault,
all unrepentant Marxists. Everyone that
that's
had
right.
anything to do with making this stew is a Marxist. And so,
Foucault, Derrida, Jacques
yep,
Lacan, all of them.
right.
Every single one of them, you know, um, I mean, and it goes back to,
And I
some
guess
of it
it's
goes,
being
some of it goes
rebranded.
back to Nietzsche. Yeah,
Yeah, and I guess it's being rebranded as woke so that you don't
sure.
attach the horrible historical record of Marxism
Well,
to woke.
if you give it minority ethnic identity,
Yes.
if you cover it in the Black Studies department or the Queer Studies department or BIPOC, this goofy term, this BIPOC term, which is
Okay.
insane.
Okay. I haven't heard that one. Yeah.
Which stands for Black Indigenous People of Color, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
So
Yep.
if you it's basically the same Marxism. They've
Right.
made it ethnocentric or LGBTQI A B C D E F G. If you give it, these things are designed. These woke labels are designed to give cover, right? So that they're beyond reproach. Because
Right.
if you attack wokeism in a certain way, you're attacking all black people everywhere, which
Yeah.
is just insane, right? It's insane, but this is how they cover their bases. This is
Right.
their bulletproof glass that they try to put up
Right.
if you try to go at them, right?
Right.
Check your privilege,
Yeah.
right? You're cisgendered. You're cisgender. Check your cis privilege. That's the other one. It's insane.
Yeah.
So obviously we have to make fun of them. We have to mock the hell out of them here.
Yeah.
So that's why on the back of the book, right at the bottom, it says there is no substitute for perfectly timed derision.
Yes.
Oh, what a word! What a word! Derision. Oh, deride them to death. Right. And that's part of a problem with our society, is that our standards and practices have fallen because we've been afraid to mock.
Yeah.
To mock. We've been afraid to shun. We've been afraid. There's no shame has been removed.
Right.
I always think of the Office episode where Dwight is shunning people. He's like, "You're shunned." Okay, wait a minute. You can talk. Unshunned. Shunned again. Unshunned. Shunned. Yeah. Right. So we need to shun, and you can unshun if they think, but we have not hit peak woke. And if Kamala, listen to me, ladies and gentlemen, there was a man at the White House. I think it was a man.
We hope. We think.
This is the White House that John Adams completed. Now, Washington was never in the White House.
That's right.
The decision to drop the nuclear bomb, the discovery of the Holocaust, the women's right to vote.
Yeah.
Lincoln walking out on the front lawn telling the Union band to play Dixie when the Confederates surrendered. He told them to play Dixie, trying to keep the peace. Consequential, epic, September 11th, Pearl Harbor, you freaking name it.
Right.
The Lusitania. And yet, during Pride Month, a year ago, Joe Biden is out on the South Lawn with a man who had women's breast implants. Yeah. Topless.
Yeah.
Topless. So you have the boob president and you have the boobs. You have the boob. You have like a whole collection.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, this is sacred ground. Don't get me wrong. The British burned part of it down in the War of 1812. But like, this is where we're at. So we have not hit peak woke. If Kamala wins, the target-rich environment's going to get crazier because, Joe is shot, but I don't think Joe in his DNA, and I'm not making excuses for him, but, he's kind of a, Uncle Cracker type of guy. Like, he's not.
He's not all there. He's clearly not
all there. He's not
running
all there,
the show.
He wasn't raised to be one of these academic Marxists the way Tim Walz and Kamala are.
That's true.
Right? And even the way Barack Obama was. Right? Yeah. Obama pulled Joe off the trash heap. So, Joe is just kind of like a gregarious, schmucky, Uncle Cracker, Irish Catholic, Mr. Malarkey, right? So, like, the left calls him that. Certain people on the left think Joe's a racist because he's out there with corn pop and he's telling these stories, right?
Well, also he authored the crime bill in the early
Sure.
90s that
That's
Bill
right.
Clinton, and then he had to renounce it as president, because now that's
Right.
racist. But
Right.
but I think that it's interesting that people like Kamala, who really can't articulate a vision, and people like Joe, who can't, are the choice of the proverbial smoke-filled room, because a lot of people make a big deal about how Kamala, it wasn't a very democratic process, small d. But people forget that the process that gave us Joe Biden was not democratic at all. He was losing, and Pete Buttigieg and these others just dropped out of the race, even though they were leading. And suddenly Joe became the nominee, and
Sure.
it really wasn't a result of primary wins. It was the smoke-filled room. And in sports, they say once is a fluke, twice is a trend. How disturbed are you that
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
the second nominee in a row that this party has given us the nominee from the smoke-filled room and not from a primary and caucus process?
That's right. Well, look, I used to tell people that were upset about Barack Obama that this is a once in a generation guy. There's not some apple orchard filled with Obamas out there. So once he's gone, they're going to have to manufacture who they put up.
Right.
So you've now seen it twice, and they actually three times, because if you recall, Hillary Clinton pretty much stole the election from Bernie Sanders. And we know this because Donna Brazil told us that Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Hillary, with the help of the super delegates in the 2016 election, maneuvered to keep the Bernie people out. Right?
That's true.
So you've got the Hillary Bernie situation. You've got in 16, you've got Biden in the basement, not campaigning. Jim Clyburn and these other guys, Pelosi, Obama, manufacture his nomination from the basement, right? Especially after South Carolina, they all dropped out. If you recall, I don't know whether you remember this, people forget this.
Yeah.
There was no clear winner of the Iowa caucus in the Democrat primary in 2020. Do you remember how it all went to crap? And they couldn't, and we were in New Hampshire, and they still didn't know a week later who had won.
Right. And they acted like, well, it doesn't matter.
Well, it was Buttigieg or Biden,
right.
But I still don't think we know who won that.
Right.
I don't think. I mean, I'll have to go look, but who was declared the winner of that years later? Right. So now that brings you to today, where you have the accidental nominee, popping out from under the desks of America, and she hasn't had to win a primary. The whole thing was manufactured. She probably made a huge mistake taking Waltz instead of Shapiro of Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania is going to be the anvil.
Key. But he's so openly Jewish. I never thought, I'm a Gen Xer, I never thought I'd see the day when there would be anti-Jewish factions within the Democratic Party and would push a nominee away from a Jewish leader.
Come on.
So I just never thought I'd see the day.
Look what they did to Joe Lieberman. They ran him out of the party.
Wow.
They ran him out of the party. And so
I thought that was ideological, I mean, he was.
Oh, well, okay. Well, look, here's what I'll tell you.
Sure.
They are more in line with the Hamas caucus of the squad.
Yeah.
Than they are your traditional Alan Dershowitz, Joe Lieberman type, Ed Rendell, Evan Bayh, Bill Clinton type Democrats, Michael Bloomberg type guys. Those guys are out. They're with the street thugs. They're with the Intifada. So whether it's Antifa or whether it's the pro-Hamas wackos on Columbia University's campus, they're with them. That's who they're with. Right? Yep. And all these Jewish left-wing comedians, it's like they woke up one day, Michael Rappaport, Sarah Silverman, Chuck Schumer's chubby niece, Amy Schumer. They're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You mean all this time the Bernie Sanders people and the pink pussycat hat people, and they were They were all anti-Israel and pro-Hamas all this time. I never knew.
Yeah.
It was like, look, totalitarians of a feather will flock together.
Yep.
Okay, this is not new.
Yeah.
The second they could get Israel, the second they could hunt Jews on college campuses, they did. Which is why,
Right.
if you read the introduction to this book, one of the reasons I wrote the book, because Black Lives Matter threw in with Hamas.
Yeah.
And look, a lot of these crazy authoritarian fascist regimes or groups,
Right.
they will make temporary deals.
Yeah.
They will look, the most racist regime of the 20th century, led by Adolf Hitler. The Germans didn't think the Italians were white. You know, the Italians just became white not that long ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Even in the United States, the biggest mass lynching in American history was not of African Americans in Louisiana.
It was Italian Americans, yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
So the Italians and the Irish to some degree, although we got a little more of a pass because we're a little paler and we could speak English, even though that wasn't our native tongue.
Right.
But we were all put in the ghettos together. The Italians, the Irish, and the Jews all had to live together, which is why the Irish started cooking corned beef. People think that's an Irish dish. No, we got it from the Jews. That's a dish we got from them, and because we live next door to them. So just understand that there's an expiration date on a lot of this. So a lot of the Jew these comedians, it's dawning on them that that their expiration date is up, and maybe they should stop voting for their own beheading. Because if you look at Hitler, he held his nose joining with Mussolini. He didn't think they were white. And then he really had to hold his nose with this Asian country known as Japan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So even the most racist regime in history cut deals to hunt Jews and cut deals to fight against, the Allies.
Right.
They did.
And it makes sense, because we talk about other academics that the woke really admire. Martin Heidegger is another one. Martin Heidegger was appointed as president of Freiburg University by Adolf Hitler. And after they lost the war, he was afraid of being executed by the Nuremberg trials. And he has a lot to do. His philosophical beliefs have a lot to do with what woke people believe today. And 100%. People think that Michel Foucault's deconstruction would be completely different without Heidegger's influence. But it's just interesting, these awkward alignments that the woke create. And one of the most hilarious, I think, is when I saw that poster that a lot of us saw online that said queers for Palestine. I mean, it's like, if the Palestinians, knew that you were queer, knew that you were trans, knew that you were gay, they would kill you immediately. So you wouldn't literally want to stand next to them, but yet you want to stand with them ideologically. It's like, you mentioned the Jews voting for their own beheading. I don't know if that's as absurd as what we're seeing from the queer community.
Sure. But again, they're authoritarians.
Yeah.
The trans mafia in particular. I mean, when they're attacking all kinds of symbols, they're attacking institutions. They do it under under the guise of social justice. But I just want to recall, and I think we're going to wrap up here in a second, but I just want to recall the video of the Taliban shooting RPG missiles at those Buddhist statues, right outside of Kandahar, right on the Pakistan border, right. So there's no difference there than the fatwa against Salman Rushdie by Iran, the fatwa against breeders by the people that want to destroy the nuclear family, against heterosexual white males, against Churchill and Columbus and Washington and Guy jumps on stage. He tries to stab Dave Chappelle at the Hollywood Bowl for
Oh,
telling
yeah.
trans jokes,
Yep.
right? So look, they will weaponize themselves. They will come after you digitally to try to shadow ban and deplatform and demonetize. Rand Paul had his ribs broken by his neighbor. Steve Scalise
Yeah.
was shot up at a baseball game.
Yep.
Tucker Carlson had his address given out, had to move. Brett Kavanaugh had a guy with a gun stalking the neighborhood. So look, Lincoln, Garfield, McKinley, Teddy Roosevelt, Ronald Reagan, JFK, Trump, all were either shot or were shot at. Every one of them was a Republican except JFK, who was a threat because he was getting his orders from the Pope. Right?
Right.
And I'm not going down that rabbit hole with Johnson and Hoover, but I will tell you, we're not the violent ones. We're not.
No.
We are not. A lot of these people were anarchist wackos. Some of them were mentally ill or both. But just understand, and I just want to make this final point. The White Privilege album is a fun, humorous take on some of the crazy stuff in our culture. Everyone should get a copy. In fact, The Woking Dead just came out on paperback. So you could get volume 1 and volume 2 together. I like to think of myself, we'll see how many of these I do before I go to the gulag. I call myself the anti-woke Harry Potter, right? So I'm fighting the Voldemorts of wokeism.
Yes.
But just understand this. You can come to this country and participate in this great experiment. And the nuclear family, the middle class, and Western civilization can be for you. You can come here and adopt it, and it doesn't have a skin color.
Right.
So don't believe the lies that you're participating in something that is, racist or some sort of supremacy is involved. We are the most successful civilization the world has ever seen.
Yeah.
We have to try to preserve it.
Yeah.
And look, this can be your country. So don't allow yourself to be divided by it. And look, my book goes through 12 months. It goes through the calendar year. I call it the 12 months of privilege. And I defend Western civilization, the middle class, and the nuclear family. I do it with humor. I'm from Philadelphia, so I write the way I talk. But I also try to tell some stories that the left tries to keep from people, especially students. Stories about Nelson Mandela, about Jackie Robinson, about Abraham Lincoln and Juneteenth, even about people like Michael Jordan. So go, get yourself a copy. And if you've got a woke, blue-haired niece or nephew, maybe you can convert them by making them laugh.
Yeah. No, that's great stuff. But yeah, what you mentioned about the school system, not only promoting certain types of information, but also suppressing it. I was at a speaking engagement at a college recently, and this kid totally hated America. But the thing is that you hate America because you know 10 bad things about America. I love America, but I know 100 bad things about America. But I know 1,000 things that America got right. And it's that lack of balance that I think a lot of parents have a problem with in our education system, that it only critiques Western civilization and never celebrates it. But thank you so much, AJ Rice, for joining us. In the comments, there'll be a link where people can click on to buy both your books. And I thank you so much for huddling with us in the cave. So.
All right. Well, brother, listen, you're a patriot. I know you have an audience of patriots, right? Let's just keep fighting for that culture, brother. And I know you're doing it in the education field. And, I'm trying to do it with these books to try to educate that we are a civilization worth preserving.
Absolutely. Very good. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Have you had it with woke and just want to laugh? Then check out my graphic novel available on Amazon now by searching for Critical Feather Theory. or you can just scan the QR code here. Well, if you like what you saw, please like this video and subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to smack that bell.